Good morning, all. Dennis here, back at you with one of my run talks. And this morning is going to be an interesting one. I want to address an interesting question. Is running sacrilege? Does it does it go against Christian ideals? Now, before I answer that, I want to first talk about why I run. I run because I believe that I am a runner, and I believe that you are a runner. I believe the human organism is designed to run. That running is the best way to understand human evolution. So right there is a teaser about why running and the stance on running might be sacrilegious in and of itself, because it is a belief in evolution. Now, I believe if you look at the human organism, you begin to understand how we rose to the top of the food chain. People like to think that we are feeble creatures in the animal kingdom. I disagree. If you look at our ability to run long distances, you begin to see that we are actually the best in the entire animal kingdom. Yes, a cheetah will outrun us in a 100-yard sprint. Yes, a horse will outrun us in a mile and much shorter. But if you start to extend that distance to marathon and ultra marathon distance, humans are superior. It starts to explain our biology as well, right? Bipedal hominids, apes, sapiens, we're on 2 feet. We are more or less hairless. We have sweat glands in a number well beyond any other animal. We have Achilles tendons, extremely springy legs and feet. This biology allows us to run long distances. We can dissipate heat. We can run with great efficiency over long distances. And if you look, we have one other feature, and it's our shoulder sockets. Our shoulder sockets have extreme degrees of freedom that allow for throwing. Our ability to run long distances and throw with great power and precision points at us being the best hunter in the animal kingdom. Running down a big game animal till it is too fatigued to continue on, to continue to evade us until it's within distance, and we can close that distance and kill it with a throw of a spear or a rock or whatever. Okay, I believe this. I believe that 2 million years ago, we came down from the trees, out of the forest, out of the jungle, onto the plains, and began to dominate through persistence hunting. And that's who we are. And therefore, to run, to replicate that type of behavior is to express yourself as humanly possible. This is why endurance runners, ultra runners are some of the happiest people on the planet because they have tapped into their DNA. They are behaving as human as possible. So point number one, by experiencing your most human self, you will also experience a deep sense of spirituality, a deep euphoria, a deep connection with yourself, with your ancestors, with nature. So, and I've experienced this for myself. People talk about the runner's high. People will talk about, the further you go into an endurance race or event, having, hallucinations, but sort of deep, what's the word? Anyway, spiritual experiences. Now, the thing that got me thinking about this topic is a book that I've been reading recently called Running, The History of Running by Thor Gotas. And he goes through this, sort of the evolution of mankind into a runner, into an endurance runner, and then how we carried that tradition and celebrated that into modern history, into running contests in Athens and Greece, in the Olympics, and how, we see it in cultures, even in China. We see running as a central theme, with professional runners being messengers for all kinds of, kings and diplomats, people who are able to run hundreds of miles a day, carrying important messages and being celebrated as heroes, messengers for giving, if they were good at their job, they were trusted, and they were given high positions or high reverence in the social order. And then, the best runners in the Olympics and different competitions were given great prestige. They were given statues. And because they represented human ideals, they represented the picture of an optimal human. And it was not sacrilegious. They were running to honor the gods. Yes, there were different gods, but they weren't running to honor themselves. They were running to honor humanity and transcendence. Okay, so point number two is that running, it's what made us, and it's what kept us connected to the spiritual world, and was a way to express gratitude and observance of transcendence. So what happened? So as we transitioned from Greece as the dominant culture to Rome, that observance of the transcendence began to fade, and it became more of a spectacle and lost some of its meaning. And then as we entered into the early part of the millennia, Christians essentially banned running, banned exercise, banned the reverence for sport, because by then it had lost its meaning and it was viewed as just something vain, honoring thyself, pursuing the inner, or the body, the flesh, instead of the spirit. And that's really sad to me, because I think pushing the flesh beyond its desire, beyond its, feelings of pleasure, into the deepest pockets of its abilities, is to push beyond the flesh into the spirit. So I think, early Christians miss that, and maybe continue to miss it. I mean, this idea carried on for a long time. My own grandmother thought of exercise this way, as something vain, as pursuing the flesh instead of pursuing the spirit. And, she died, God bless her, but she died prematurely, in my opinion. She was in her 60s. And, well, I'll just leave that where it is. Now, so to answer the question, is running sacrilegious? Well, if you believe the flesh is sinful and you deny evolution, and you just assume that we were created in this form, and this form is all but meaningless, right? I don't know. Why did God give us this ability to run better than any other animal? Why did he give us all these sweat glands? Why did he give us these amazing lungs and heart? When you even start to try and answer these questions, it was like, all right, well, God made us in the garden, right? Maybe our responsibility was something like tending to the garden, to be outside all day, to be able to have our hands free would explain the reason to sweat, and the reason to be bipedal, to have free hands, to have mobile shoulder joints for reaching overhead. So it's something like a farmer. Okay, fine. It still would make sense to honor this, right? To have farm strength would be still something we'd want to celebrate today. Another book I'm reading is about running, is The Perfect Mile. And God, I'm going to forget his name right now, Wes. But he was a local Kansas runner who was in contention to be one of the first to break the 4-minute mile. And he was, attended the University of Kansas, was a great runner, and a great prospect to be one of the first to break the 4-minute mile. And he was a farmhand. His dad was a local farmhand, and he grew up running around the farm to hurry up and get his chores done, running to school. He was like basically this kid whose dad was really tough on him and borderline abusive with making him do work around the farm. And this kid had a lot of energy, a lot of angst, probably like some ADHD, and just ran everywhere, ran to school, ran around the farm to hurry up and get his chores done so that he could run some more and compete, because he knew he had a gift, and it felt like a gift from God, and he wanted to celebrate that by running more. And when he ran, he felt most like himself, and he felt most at home. He felt most safe. He felt the greatest sense of respect for himself and worth for himself. And I don't think that's in a vain way. I think every human, every person should be able to find a way to find some self-worth. And if you're out running on your own, that's not boastful, Anyway, that's just my opinion. So I believe that to experience yourself as a runner is to experience creation, to experience God's gifts and evolution, which I don't see as being conflicting with one another. I believe in a God of creation, and we evolved into this body. We can argue for a purpose, but it is the body that we have, and the historical anthropological records show how we use this body in the past for persistence hunting. Clearly, by participating in that exercise, we evolved big brains and culture that clearly have separated us from the rest of the apes that stayed in the forest, that stayed in the trees. So either that is a good thing, a part of God's plan, or it's an abomination, but it's what you are today. And if you want to feel that, if you want to experience that, commune with that deeper part of yourself, your DNA, then you ought to be able to get out for a run. Now, am I sitting here saying everybody has to go start running today? No, not necessarily. I think walking is a close analog. But, as a trainer, I've often thought deeply about what is the avatar for success that people should be striving towards. There's these general metrics that I'm asked to deliver, but they're very compartmentalized. They're very separate from the whole experience. So people want to lose body fat percentage, but who are you at the end of that? People want to increase cardiovascular fitness, but who are you at the end of that? People want to increase strength. They want to reduce pain, but who are you at the end of that? So I think being able to be a runner and an athlete, a runner, a thrower, which requires endurance and explosiveness, is a great expression of human thriving. Being able to run fast and lift fast, lift heavy, be explosive. And this is an important point, because just being an endurance runner, in my opinion, is incomplete as well. We've seen the elite of the elite run into problems. Ryan Hall, one of the greatest American runners of all time, when he was just marathon running, for the sake of just being the absolute best marathon runner, he did start to run into some problems. He had low body weight, low muscle mass, and practically zero testosterone, and began to suffer from depression and sickness because of that. So maybe to give credit to some of the idea that, running could be sacrilege, which is like anything, if you forget its purpose, then yeah. So he began to sacrifice his own health for a standard. But he came out the other end, and this is a deeply spiritual person, by the way, Christian. he came out the other end and realized that he can continue with his passion for running by balancing out the physiology with strength training. Okay, he can optimize his hormones with strength training and have a body that is both enduring and strong. And so, that's what I would like to be able to show people. I'd like to show people how to build joint integrity so that they could run if they wanted to, how to become pain-free so they could run if they wanted to, how to build strong muscles so that they can have optimized hormones and optimized body fat percentage so they could run if they wanted to. Run fast, lift heavy, run far, pain-free. These are some of the ideals I would like to see people be able to achieve. Why? Because to experience yourself in such a fashion is to open doors into the inner self and be able to have a deeper spiritual experience, whatever that may be for you. Running is deeply meditative. It's deeply spiritual. And I don't see how anything about that could be sacrilegious. One last thought, just kind of tongue-in-cheek. Strength athletes kind of speak of running and cardio as sacrilegious just because they hate it. But if you go about it correctly, having cardiovascular fitness and the ability to run will improve your strength journey. Having that level of fitness will allow you to recover faster and therefore have more density in your training, be able to lift heavy more frequently. So running is not sacrilegious in terms of sport, in terms of actual religion, in terms of anything, because you are a runner. The human is a runner. And I defy anybody to take an objective look at human physiology and tell me that it was not optimized for running. All right, y'all, so I got pace.